People have been making cheese for centuries in much the same way as it is done today. There are few things that we do in our kitchens more magical than watching milk turn into curds and whey and then become cheese. I am so excited to share this journey of cheese making with you and welcome you into my world of cheese making. Hi, I'm Paula Butler, owner of Standing Stone Farms. Welcome to my kitchen. Standing Stone Farms offers cheese-making workshops and cheese supplies for the home cheesemaker. Today we're going to learn about what ingredients are best, the equipment to use, and all the basic skills you need to become an amazing cheesemaker. Let's get started. We've got our milk here and all the equipment we need. And as you can see, there's nothing here that's scary or difficult to find because that's the style of cheesemaking we do here at Standing Stone Farms, old world style. And we use the same things that have been being used for centuries. We've got just spoons, regular ladles, skimmer spoons, measuring spoons, pots. We need to use stainless steel, enamel, or glass. Knives. No need to go spend money on some high-end curd cutting knife because we're going to learn very soon that curd is just like yogurt. Any knife that you have in your drawer is going to cut that curd as long as it is as big as your pot. So you don't need to go buy any fancy knives or anything like that. You are going to need to get a good thermometer. Thermometers are extremely important. And of course, yes, we've been doing this for centuries, but we've really made some changes to make it so that it doesn't take as long to make cheese. And with those changes, something called mesophilic culture, it's extremely temperature sensitive. So good thermometers are a must. I have a variety that I use, from an instant read digital to a dial, to my very favorite. It's called a ThermoWorks, and it will do instant temperature very quickly. So, but any way you want to do it is good for you as long as you have a good solid thermometer. Other than that, you'll see that we have things like Tupperware, parchment paper, a Silpat, which is permanent parchment paper, glass bowls. Most of the world calls these fine mesh strainers. I call them curd catchers, and you will use them all the time. Colanders, measuring cups, and that's about it. Everything else will do with just natural style. Of course, we have to use our drain bag, which we have right here. Most of the cheeses that you're going to make are going to require you to use a drain bag. You don't want to go spending a whole lot of money on commercial drain bags, as they're really meant for the commercial dairy. And at home, we just need something to drain. You can use this, a flour sack towel, or you can even use a pillowcase and just cut the top off of it. It's going to make your life much easier than those commercial drain bags that are set up for holders that you won't have at home. So the first thing we really need to talk about in order for you to understand cheese is, what is cheese? The history of cheese. Cheese was discovered by an Arab merchant. The Arab merchant wanted to go on a journey across the desert. Of course, today we don't worry about those things. We can just go wherever we want and find supplies along the way. He couldn't do that, so he decided to bring milk. So he used the stomach lining of a calf, and he put his milk in that. And traditionally, that was what we used centuries ago because the digestive enzymes in the stomach lining of the animals were preservatives. So he took the stomach lining of a calf and he put goat milk in it. At the end of the day, tired, hot, exhausted, he sat down to drink his milk, and when he opened up the stomach lining, he discovered curds and whey. And, unlike us today where we might say, I don't know what that is, I'm not going to drink it, he said, I've got to drink it, don't have a choice. So he decided to drink the whey. The whey is a thin, liquid, watery substance, and the curds are kind of like what we know today as yogurt. So he drank the whey and went to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, he decided to go ahead and have that yogurty substance, and he opened it up, and it had turned into a soft, spreadable goat cheese. He was super excited about this and took all this information to the Romans, and the Romans really made cheese what we know today. They learned about aging and pressing and all the various cheeses. And it's really that simple. But what you have to keep in mind through your entire process is that that is the basics. It's always milk and some kind of coagulant or an acidifier, which we'll talk about because we now have some options. We don't always use the stomach lining of an animal. There are vegetarian options, things like that that we use, and various things that we've invented to make our life easier because we don't want to walk across the desert every time we want to eat cheese. So that's why those thermometers become very important, because all the science that's involved now has made it so we have to pay attention to temperature. One of the things we want to keep in mind is that all cheese is the same. Remembering that all cheese is the same will make your life very simple. The only difference between cheeses is the temperature we cook them, the degree in which we mess with them, chop them up, stir them, but basically they all are very similar. The softer the cheese, the lower the temperature. The harder the cheese, the higher the temperature. The softer and creamier the cheese, the less we stir them, mess with them. The harder the cheese, the more we mess and stir with them, and we chop them up and we dry them and cook them. But they're all basically the same 5 to 7 ingredients, always of course starting with milk. So we have to talk about milk a little bit because not all milk makes cheese. We have several milks here. We have raw goat milk from my dairy farm. We have store-bought milk. Both of these will easily make any cheese you want to make. The only difference is if you're using raw milk, that's how it was meant to be made. You don't have to make any adjustments. So if you're able to access raw milk, either from a local farmer or your own animals, you can bring it in and make cheese just like that. Just follow the rest of the recipe without having to make any changes to the milk itself. Something occurs though when we pasteurize milk, whether it's raw milk that you're getting from a local farmer and you bring it home and decide to pasteurize it, or you're buying it from the grocery store. If you're buying raw milk, you are perfectly fine. Just go ahead and don't worry about the molecular structure of your milk because it is staying stable. If you buy milk from the grocery store, you have to go ahead and make a few changes. Something occurs when we pasteurize it, we cook out the calcium. So we have to restore the balance of calcium into the milk in order to make it work. So we use this awesome stuff called calcium chloride. Calcium chloride is really easy to find, simple. It's in almost every cheese-making supply house. And all you have to do is remember one very simple recipe. It's a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride to a 1/4 cup of water per gallon of milk. And it's the same for all recipes. So just remember that if you're using store-bought pasteurized milk or raw milk that you've decided to pasteurize from a farm, you will always have to add calcium chloride for every recipe. And many, many cookbooks will not tell you this. They'll just say a gallon of milk, assuming that you know as a cheesemaker that if you're using pasteurized milk, you must add the calcium chloride. So it's very simple. Store-bought, raw milk, local farmer. What you can't use is ultra-pasteurized milk. So ultra-pasteurized milk will not make cheese. And in different parts of the country, you have to be really careful with that because many organic milks are ultra-pasteurized. So you're really going to have to check those labels. You'll spend a lot of time and effort and money and will have zero success with cheese. In addition, it has to be a dairy product. So you can't use almond milk or soy milk or anything like that. So just keep in mind either milk from a farm or milk from the grocery store and you're fine. Now, of course, many recipes call for whipping cream. Okay, heavy whipping cream is used a lot in recipes. And that, of course, is almost always going to be ultra-pasteurized, and that's perfectly fine because usually it's just a small percentage of the amount of milk volume that we're using, and it will be fine using ultra-pasteurized cream. Okay, so other than that, we're going to go over our ingredients. We have a number of ingredients that we use in addition to the milk, but please always keep in mind milk's the most important. The quality of your milk will determine the quality of your cheese in the end. So other than that, we have a few products that we use regularly. One is called a mesophilic culture. Because remember that guy walking across the desert? Well, we don't want to wait to walk across the desert, so we've invented this very cool stuff called mesophilic culture. And it's a ripener. And it basically walks across the desert for us. We use this in many, many cheeses. Sometimes it's in the cheese for 10 minutes, sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes for 12 hours. Its job is to walk across the desert. We also use other things called lipase powder. The lipase powder is a flavoring agent. It adds all the flavor to the cheeses. It's almost in every single Mediterranean and Italian cheese you use. It can be a little difficult to use. Sometimes it likes to act like flour, but just you'll have to get in there sometimes with your hands and gloves on and break up the powder or something like that. But other than that, you're perfectly fine. Then, of course, we have citric acid. Citric acid is used a lot in cheese making. Of course, it has the big acid word. I don't want you to worry about that. It's really just lemons. So I tell people all the time, yes, will it burn my eyes? Absolutely, but you'll be a little conflicted because it'll taste really good in the back of your throat. So it's very simple. It's used for most of the cheeses that we're going to make today. It's a very easy product to find. It is pharmaceutical grade. The stuff in the grocery store won't work for you. The next thing we have to talk about is salt. Salt is one of the most important ingredients in cheese making. And many people struggle with this because they are on a low salt diet or they're nervous about working with salt. Salt in your cheese making recipe is vitally important because it's not there for flavor. At the end of a recipe, if it says season to taste, then you go to town with your no salts and your garlics and your herbs and all your seasonings. But in the recipe itself, you really have to use the amount of salt asked for. What salt does is it's a natural preservative. It inhibits mold growth, and it helps remove the whey from the curds. Because remember that Arab merchant? He drank the whey, leaving just the curd, and that's what became cheese. If we leave whey in our curd, we will never make cheese. So one of the most important things to remember is there is no whey in your cheese. So we have to strip that whey out at all times, and salt really helps us do that. Of course, just like with the milk, it's not as simple as being able to use any salt. We have to be very cautious with our salts. We can use any salt as long as there's no iodine. So it's really simple, just no iodine. So I prefer kosher salt or cheese salt. You can, of course, use sea salt, but kosher salt is generally the best one to use because we use an awful lot of it. So you'll be shocked when you're getting those recipes and you start it, but go ahead, stick with the recipe, and when you taste it, you'll say, hey, where's all that salt I put in there? It's going to come out in your whey and you'll never taste it in your cheese. So you'll be good. If you don't put your salt in, and a lot of people don't do it, at the end of the day you're going to have a very soured out cheese because that man walking across the desert, our mesophilic culture, it's going to keep on walking. That salt gets in there and says, stop walking, we're perfectly ready to become cheese. So you have to be careful with your salt. Make sure you utilize it. Okay, other than that, we've got a couple other things. We've got that stomach lining of the cow we have to talk about, and that's called rennet. It is definitely the magic of cheese making. What this does is it gets in there and it coagulates the curd. It makes the curd so that it can become cheese. I choose not to use animal rennet. Most all we sell on our website now, and all I use is an organic vegetarian rennet. It's called microbial rennet. It's made from a fungus. It tastes and acts just like animal rennet. It's amazing stuff. Everything else you see here that we've got microwave safe bowls. We've got butcher string, but you can use any kind of string when we go to hang those drain bags. Water, Tupperware that we'll use on occasion, scissors. Everything you see here you can find easily at home in your cabinet already or at any local grocery store. So you can see that there's really no reason to go out and spend a whole bunch of money trying to figure out how to make cheese. And that's really the style of cheese making we do here at Standing Stone Farms. It's an old world style, always remembering that we've been doing this for centuries. Your ancestors did this with a copper pot and a wood fire outside and a big spoon. It's not difficult, it's not complicated, you just need to dig in and do it. I mean, we eat cheese every day and there's a reason, because it's simple and it's wonderful and it's healthy.